Show me your moves.
Oh, wow. Very nice. All right. Hi,
Oh my God.
ho, neighbors, and welcome to another episode of Geek Life, your source for all the nerdy news you need to know. I am your host, the streamer this podcast needs, but not the one it deserves, especially because I've been taking a good amount of time off from streaming lately. But if you're new to the show, we're a 2.5-hour mashup of all the pop culture news you know and love. We talk about your favorite movies, TV, video games, and legendary internet forms being put out to pasture. More on that later. Joining me today is a man... is the only man to make 6 beats a day for 4 summers. Bugcatcher Kev, a.k.a. Totally Awesome. How are you doing this evening, Kev?
I'm doing fantastic, Dad. We were lost there, but we're back. We're back. I think it had a lot to do with your pirate shenanigans, but here we are.
Yes, we reeled it back in like line at the end of the boat. And also joining with us here today, back from yet another vacation in Themyscira, but this one isn't crashed into the water, which is a Snyder cut reference, by the way. Anyways, Bronwyn the Warrior Princess is here. How you doing today, Bronwyn?
I'm doing well. I didn't prepare a cool miming intro like Kev did, but I really appreciated that. It was awesome. I'm doing well. It's good to be here on the interwebs and not out in the wilderness. So it's a nice change for me. It's good to be here.
Yes. You've had a lot of chaos over there on the Pacific coast lately that has prevented you from being with us, but you're here with us today, and we are glad to have you guys. How have you guys been surviving the now post-apocalypse? What have you guys been binging? How have you guys been surviving? I know, Kev, you mentioned earlier, I've been surviving by doing some pirate shit with the fattest sacks, with a lot of our nerd herders within the community. That's been a lot of fun. How have you guys been surviving the post-apocalypse?
Yeah, it's been the same, doing some gaming, getting back into some Rainbow Six nonsense. I've been, for some reason, got into Mario Odyssey, and it's been great. And I've been doing it sober, which is even better. Kind of forget some of the things you go over. But no, it's been cool. Just that's about it. Catching up on Falcon Winter Soldier, and yeah. Yeah,
nice. What about you, Braun?
Yeah, I've been catching up on Winter Soldier, which I'm very excited to talk to everyone about tonight. So we'll get into that later. But in my other news, I have dusted off my GameCube and been excited to get into some more Smash Bros, playing with friends in Melee, and
nice
old Zelda games, some Mario Sunshine, and
that sounds like fun. See, one thing I want to try to do, if I can get my internet speeds back up to a streaming good capacity, I want to go back and play some games that people just really want to see and have big nostalgia for. One of the ones that I want to do is I want to do Knights of the Old Republic. I also want to do a stream of some of the fan-made Pokemon games that are a little bit harder and have some cool backstories. I think that would be stuff that people would really like to see. So I'm hoping to be able to get to those kind of things. But I feel on the nostalgia because I've been trying to see if I can play Knights of the Old Republic because everybody says it's such a great game. Darth Revan was popular on Twitter this week. I don't know if you guys followed our TikTok feed. We talked a little bit about that. It's been a crazy week. So I feel you on the going back in the GameCube days, and I'm about to reach into see if I can get into a game from 2003, which I mean that's the same year that Bruce Almighty came out. That's how old that game is. So
it's a super underappreciated console. I was thinking about that the other day.
Yeah. It is. The Nintendo GameCube is not looked at as a console that is as amazing as it is, but it definitely deserves some stuff. Chat's already popping off about it, Melee being the main one. Extreme Greatness has been catching up on anime and jogging, so that seems like about a very accurate term for anyone in the nerd herd who's been following our shit. So Anyways, we've got a great show planned for you guys today. We didn't get a showcase it last week, but we've got a great show for you guys today. So, Kev, why don't you go ahead and hit us with that rundown? Tell us what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Dodd. This week's rundown is brought to you by Towels. Towels. Don't forget to bring one. As always, we're kicking off the show with this week's headlines from around the web. A crossover rumor that could mean Master Chief in the Mushroom Kingdom? The fuck? Legends of Tomorrow actor goes a bit more method than expected, and a potential recast worthy of a king. Next up, we're wasting company time and walking over to the water cooler for this week's discussion on Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Man, last week was a doozy, to say the least.
Yeah.
Then, as always, we're diving deep into this week's deep dive on separating art from artists, which transitions so smoothly into our top 10, the top 10 artists that embody their characters. Sound off in the chat with your top picks now. But enough of the foreplay. Let's get this party started.
But before we get this party started, a little bit more foreplay. I forgot to mention at the top before we got into the rundown. Before we get started, quick reminder, if you want to be a part of this nerd herd that's been doing all these pirate shenanigans with us and hanging out with us in Discord and sharing a whole bunch of dank-ass memes, definitely join our Discord. There's a link to it below where it says join the nerd herd, join the nerd herd. And you can also follow us on any of our social medias. We're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, we're on Twitter, we're on Twitch, we're on the Facebook, all over the place.
Books. Yeah, MySpace.
So definitely join up. There's plenty of people in chat that can help you, point you right in the way there. Also, shout out to some of our nerd herders there. As I said, obviously I've been playing some Sea of Thieves over on the Fattest Sax's stream, but also on Saxer Days, which has been the thing we've been doing. But shout out to SAG Gaming, a big part of our community, making to huge numbers of subscribers gained on YouTube over the past couple of weeks. We're a community here and we try to lift people up, and we just want to say shout out to SAG Gaming. Congrats on all that. And if you guys haven't checked out SAG Gaming, go check him out on YouTube. I'm sure one of our moderators can get you a link to his YouTube page. Go drop him a sub. He's got some great content out there. I think recently been doing some Spider-Man on there, which has been fantastic. And last but not least, if you want to catch us, any of us on any of our personal socials, you can catch me at Roose Bane on Twitch and Twitter, WRUSE_BANE. Kev, where can they find you?
Totally awesome.
And Braun, what about you?
You can find me at Space Nymph.
All right. Well, that does it for that, but let's get right into those headlines. Bronwyn, take us through the gambit. What do we got?
All right, buckle your seatbelts. I got a lot of headlines for you. First off, Batman: The Long Halloween Part 1 exclusive trailer dropped earlier last week. The film stars Jason Ackles from Supernatural as the voice of Batman and the legendary Mark Hamill as the Joker. The movie will come in 2 parts, and Part 1 release date has been announced for June 22nd, 2021. Next, Borderlands Movie adds Janina Gavankar as Commander Knox. The actress who played Ilden Verso in Battlefront 2, Detective McKenna Hall, and Arrow will now be starring in the upcoming Borderlands movie with Jack Black and Kevin Hart.
She's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
A brand new character in the series, and if past is persistent, she'll definitely be a badass. Next up, Zack Snyder released a trailer for his new movie, and surprisingly, it's not Wonder Woman doing something in slow motion or in black and white. The Netflix film will be Snyder's first post-DCEU project after the release of Zack Snyder's Justice League in March, and it's already looking to be a significant departure from the tone of that superhero franchise and his second zombie movie since the classic Dawn of the Dead. The trailer attempts to bring new life to the genre as it mixes hyper-intelligent zombies, heist movie vibes, and a zombie tiger into the mix. And a new rumor suggests that Nintendo and Xbox will make an announcement later this year. The rumor was shared by Nick Special Ed Baker on Twitter, the co-founder of XboxEra.com. The poster pointed to an April 9th Game Mess video from Jeff Grubb, and the video Grub discusses a Phil Spencer photo with many interesting items on the shelf in the background, including a Nintendo Switch. In the video, Grub states that everything on Phil's shelf meant something incoming. The announcement is expected to come this fall. And next in our news, Heatwave quits in a blaze of glory. Now, this is a big story, guys, so I'm going to break it down for you. Legend of Tomorrow is down a villain for season 7.
Oh, no.
And it looks like Heatwave may have quit LOT. Then after he calmed down, clarified his position in a tweet. On Friday this week, Dominic Purcell, Heatwave, a series regular since season 1, seems to have left the show in an angry, furious rage. According to Twitter, this is his original tweet that went out that I'm quoting for you. I'll just get right into it. Deal isn't done. I have no interest. Whatever cash they throw on the corporate level, I'm walking away from at Legends of Tomorrow. It's been a total pleasure and a humbling experience bringing at DC Comics iconic character #Heatwave, aka Mick Rory, to life. I smashed this character. Not an actor in the world could have done better. Fact. Such a funny cunt. Time to move on and see how shit unfolds. At Kitty Lotz, at Nick Zano, look after the kids coming through. They need education. They are a number. Teach them to not rely on loyalty from the studio. The studio does not care. The actors' work ethic and talent must give them the confidence to question authority. Much love to all. It's not lost on me how very fortunate I am. Actors hit me up on DM. So quite a ranty tweet. Well, after the intense reactions online, he clarified his position with the company the next morning. So in his next tweet, he says, quote, "Why so serious? My last post, I needed a laugh. It was a joke and the press went nuts. And yes, I will always fuck with the press. It's fun watching them be clickbaited. Truth is, yes, I'm leaving at Legends of Tomorrow, but we'll come back periodically. It's a handshake deal with my boss, Bill Clemmer. I don't have beef with the studio at Warner Brothers TV. I don't have a beef with anyone except myself. Ha ha. Shit. Woke up this morning like I'd caused mass #riot. Emails, phone calls, but what a genius negotiation move. I am loved. P.S. My dear friends, the press got a great one for you next week. You gotta love it." End quote. That's my news for the day.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah, that's. There's a ton to just get involved there. I think for starters, I'm super excited to see a Long Halloween movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did anybody else get a chance to check out the Long Halloween trailer?
I missed it. No. I saw like bits and pieces, but I haven't seen the whole thing in its entirety.
It's pretty nice. I do think that they're really lacking in the animation style that was very unique to Long Halloween. Mm-hmm. Like we're not getting that very, kind of like goblin-esque Catwoman look. So that's a bit of a bummer. But I do think that the DC animated animations department has really not disappointed, except for a couple of endings to some of the movies. But hey, let's see how it goes. The DC animated movies, especially DC Batman animated movies, have done really, really well. So I'm excited to see it. Kev, what do you think about Iden Verso as a great fit on this Borderlands cast? He's going to be playing in as a new character, a character that hasn't been introduced in the game, and it's going to be playing alongside Jack Black and Kevin Hart. Do you think this is a good fit?
I think it's a great fit. I love Iden Verso. Like I said, she's great. Like Janina Gavankar, she's done so many great things. She was real. I mean, she's been in Arrow. She's been in Battlefront. She's great in that. I even think she's like a bit of a gamer, so I think that always helps, right? Like you kind of have that sort of understanding and compassion to bring to it. But I just want to circle back to this Heatwave shit because I was a pretty big fan of Legends of Tomorrow, and I haven't watched this previous season at all, and I've been because a lot of people have left, so I've been kind of losing interest. But now I'm just wondering if I want to get back into it because like Heatwave, Mick Rory is like one of my favorite characters on the show. Like if anyone it's kind of a bummer. So I mean I don't know. Is he gone? Like I'm kind of confused what happened there, but holy hell.
Yeah, seeing him blow up on Twitter like that was really, it was
Yeah.
kind of weird because it's like very coup de grace his character, you
Right,
know?
right. It's
Like it
something he
feels
would
like
do.
something Heatwave would do.
Yeah.
Um,
It's kind of bearing the lead of our deep dive today. Like or
I
our
know,
top
right? It really is. It
our
seems
top
it seems very
bandwagon.
in line with what his character would play as.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe
Brahma,
some
what do
method acting.
I know,
Yeah.
right? It could be
Right.
method acting.
Yeah.
I think he went way too
Daniel
method.
Day-Lewis. Yeah.
Yeah, full method. But speaking of bearing the lead, though, in all of these headlines, though, that we're talking about here, Brahman, what do you think the big secret behind this Xbox Nintendo collab that we're supposedly going to hear about in the fall? I mean, that has potential ramifications to be huge.
Yeah, I think it could be something really huge or maybe super minor because I know they have some of the bigger console games, such as Skyrim, that they've made accessible to play on the Switch. So it could just be like something simple like that. Like, here's an Xbox exclusive game you played before on the Xbox. Now you're able to play it on the Switch. Because I don't really see Nintendo giving up any of their games like for a bigger console. I don't think, or for a not bigger console, but for the Xbox, I don't see them being like, okay, now we're designing this Mario game that you can play on the Xbox, or even a collaborative game. I think it's going to be the other way around, like taking Xbox games and remastering them or something for the Switch in a similar way that they did to Skyrim is kind of where I see that announcement going. But do you have any ideas?
I mean, what I hope it's not just like, we're porting Fortnite, porting, Minecraft or some kind of bullshit over to Nintendo and they're going to give us some kind of dumb collaboration. But I'm hoping that there is some legitimacy to it. I mean, the rumors are based around, him having a Switch on his desk, which everything on the desk was supposed to mean something kind of thing. So to me, like, and that's led down some tricky paths before as far as Pokemon when it comes to predicting stuff. So, I hope, that was, that ends up kind of, I hope it ends up being something that's worth it, really, is what I hope. I hope we don't end up being disappointed. I hope that it builds up to the hype. But this is something that, people are being hush-hush about. So it's not like I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. Kev, what do you think?
It's going to be Master Chief and Smash. No,
yeah. I hope. That would be great, wouldn't it? Yeah, that would be worthy of it. That would be something that would be, I think, valid, to hold off to,
I guess, but it wouldn't make any sense because it's like there's never been like a Halo game on any, like, at least like Minecraft, but at least Minecraft is on the Switch,
Right.
Maybe they're bringing Halo to the Switch. You could play online with your friends.
Yeah.
Maybe. Like, I don't know. It's probably
maybe they announce that Halo comes to the Switch on that announcement. That's the big.
It could be
trade-off.
It could be like watch it be some big shit where it's like
you can play Smash Bros on Xbox.
Oh God. Or like some type of cloud gaming collaboration coming to the Switch and vice versa. Like,
oh yeah,
I don't know what they could do. I think that's the crazy part. Like the mysteries that drive me crazy because I can't fathom what Nintendo, Xbox, because it never really collaborated on anything other than Microsoft owning Rare and Banjo-Kazooie. Like that's.
I think that would be absolutely nuts to see happen.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited. We haven't touched base on it yet, but I'm excited for the new Zack Snyder movie. Like, oh my gosh, did you see the trailer?
I did see the trailer. Okay, so this is something that is a little bit more interesting. I mean, you got like hyper intelligent zombies and you got zombie tigers. I mean, this is kind of a bit of a different zombie movie than we've seen before. But like, the big question is the zombie trend drawn out? Like, is it on its last legs? Pun intended.
I think it's been so drawn out now, but it's drawn out in a sense that you can do whatever the hell you want with it. Meaning that no one's gonna bash you for making a zombie movie now because I think it's like past its time. So if you're making a zombie movie to sort of ride that wave, I don't think anyone's gonna think you're doing that, right? So I don't think they're gonna cringe at it. They're gonna be like, what are you gonna do that's different? I guess. I don't know. I think it's one of those things where it's kind of in a niche now, as opposed to like it's like this wave of thing, like like the superhero blockbusters, the alien movies, the zombies, vampires versus werewolves. Like it's not like there isn't really that trend other than like in media now, other than like depressing documentaries, i.e. 2020 inspiration.
Yeah.
But
a movie that's not so serious and like that is kind of ridiculous. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
So I'm craving that. I don't want an action movie that's gonna like bore me to death and just be.
Yeah, it's got like very much Left 4 Dead vibes.
It does. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Army of the Dead. I mean, it's based off a video game, is it not?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure Army of the Dead is a video game.
It might be. It sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar. Yeah. But I mean, it definitely seeks to stand out amongst the zombie movie crowd. So we'll see how it goes. I think that it definitely is very interesting to see, and it's definitely not the next thing we wanted to see Zack Snyder working on after seeing the Snyder cut. But hey, we'll take it, right? Because at the end of the day, we'll just give Zack Snyder money. Well. There is another big story out there, though, and it's going to be our top story for the week. There's been a big debate in the comic book world after some Marvel fans launched a petition to get the attention of Marvel Studios, with their cause being a recasting of the iconic Marvel Cinema's Universe character, T'Challa. T'Challa, the King of Wakanda, and Black Panther was portrayed by none other than Chadwick Bosman through Marvel's through 4 Marvel Studio titles before Bosman passed away after following a battle with colon cancer. Since his passing, Marvel Studios' Kevin Feige has revealed that they are electing not to recast the role of Black Panther 2 with Black Panther 2 on the way. Many fans agree with this call, but now some are trying to share their opinion on which sees value in having another actor play this role. Petition starter Emmanuel Noisette had this to say: "If Marvel Studio removes T'Challa, it would be at the expense of the audience, especially black boys and men who saw themselves in him. That includes themselves in the millions of fans who were inspired by the character as well." Now, the other option in this debacle is to pass the mantle of Black Panther on to Shuri, which is something that happens in the Marvel comics. Kev, Braun, what do you think is the best option here? Kev, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I think if you would have asked me this months ago, I probably would have had a different response. But having some time to, I guess, mull it over and think about it, I think it's the best option to move forward, right? Like, just the idea is to keep something that's important to the culture, for lack of better words, moving. And I think you can do that by paying homage to the person that kind of put this mantle of Black Panther on there, but at the same time realizing that it's not just one person, it's not just one individual, it's a bunch of people, and that sort of embodies what the comics are about. So I think it's like, you don't recast T'Challa, but I think you do recast Black Panther, or someone else takes up the helm.
Brahman, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I think that passing it along to Shuri would do exactly that, because it is recognizing she's not him, but she can take this mantle and do with it what she can. And it's not, I think that there'd be an issue if you were just recasting the role, in a sense, just like putting in another actor and not recognizing it in the film, like swapping that character out. And I think that by passing on the mantle, it's different than recasting. It's recognizing that, and I think that they can do that in a really touching way in the film.
And I think what the petition is for, Kev, is to recast T'Challa, so that character can still live on, because that character hasn't died in the Marvel universe yet. And it's kind of weird right now. We're going to be talking about Falcon and Winter Soldier here in just a little bit, but there's a lot of interaction with Wakanda in that. Yeah. Right. And it is kind of weird to see that he wouldn't be personally involved. They found Zemo. Like, why the fuck wouldn't he want to kill? Like, he had a personal vendetta against Zemo. He went after Zemo. Like, that was the whole thing, was him and Winter Soldier were chasing. That was the whole introduction of Black Panther, was him trying to chase down Zemo by foot while he was in a car. Right. or at least something around that plot. But anyway, Zemo killed his father. There's no reason why he wouldn't be there, and it does kind of feel weird if you think about it too much. I mean, obviously we know why Black Panther's not showing up, but so that already feels like there's a bit of a vacuum in there where there could be content. Does recasting the role lessen Bodwick's legacy at all?
No, I don't think it lessens it at all. I think it even magnifies it even more, the fact that we're having this conversation. I think that's what the danger is, right? Like, if you do that, are you going to be turning off a number of people who would find that, I guess, subjectively disrespectful? And again, it's not a matter of disrespect. It's entertainment, right? The show does go on, but we'll be talking about this later. At what point does someone so much embody a character that you can't see someone else in that role, and therefore this person has mounds of right? Like, you thought there was a lot of pressure for Jared Leto playing the fucking Joker. Whoever's gonna step in Chadwick Boseman's shoes to play T'Challa, even having the support of like the entire like Black community behind it, and Marvel fans, it's still going to be a lot. Like, the amount of pressure, it's not like you can't, and you're never going to be able to exceed the expectations that people will have for you. It just doesn't. I think yes, from a practical sense, from lineage and continuity of the comics, it would make sense to recast, but it doesn't seem like it's the most practical thing to do, or even possible. At this point, it'd be like put it this way: they can't recast Paul Walker in Fast and Furious. I'm pretty sure they're not going to be able to recast T'Challa. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, but here's the other thing, though, is that when you look at other characters like Superman, when you look at characters like Batman, when you look at characters like Spider-Man, all of those have been played by multiple actors, because the idea passes on beyond them, and their contributions to the character are still greatly recognized. And I think they're recognized differently on how well they play the character. That's part of embodying that character.
But I think the difference is that the reason why he's not playing the character is different for why the other actors aren't playing that character anymore. You know what I mean? Like, contracts ran out. Somebody found a better actor, whatever. Chadwick Boseman died. I think that's the difference. It's not like. That's true. I think it's not a studio decision as to why he's, it's something out of everyone's control as to why he's not.
But to look at it from a content side, right? Of, if that becomes a barrier to getting that content out and to getting new material out, you could think of the same thing with The Crow, for sure. Why did nobody want to do a Crow 2? Why did nobody want to do a Crow remake? Because the actor died. And that whole story around it kind of like, is it the best thing for the legacy and all that kind of stuff? And I think that apprehension at the end of the day, what we ended up not getting? Another fucking Crow movie. And so, like, I think that would it not be better for the legacy of Black Panther to literally just have a new T'Challa in there and recast that character? Chadwick's legacy is going to stay the same. He's always going to be that first Black Panther, the person that brought it to life, the person that embodied it, and he may even do it better than the person that comes up there now. But what does happen is you get another fucking Black Panther. You get a Black Panther 2, you get a Black Panther 3, you get a Black Panther 4. You can continue on that legacy. And honestly, what's really missing, if I see anything from it with a lot of particularly the franchise that star characters of color, is that that ongoing franchise involvement. I can't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, chat, please correct me if I'm wrong. I can't think of any character in my head, a Black superhero at least, that multiple people have played. I can think of Blade as one, because they just recast that next one and they've got a new one, but I can't, I think that it's because these characters sometimes get typecast. Like Halle Berry, there's no one else that can think of her as Storm. And we're going to be talking about art from artists later. But I could kind of see that as a hindrance of, but also it's great that Halle Berry's Storm is amazing. But did that prevent other actors from playing Storm? Did that prevent more material about Storm from being made because it limited it by Halle Berry's schedule, Or is that thinking about it too hard?
I think it's thinking about it too hard because they still were able to like, and only because of this, they were still able to recast Professor Xavier. They were still able to recast shit. They had both Professor Xaviers and both Magnetos in the movie, right? So
right.
I think that's like a larger, maybe even like, I don't want to go too deep, but maybe it's even a systemic issue as to why some of these other, black comic icons aren't getting, play, or even casted. But I think yes. I don't think you end the Black Panther, but I think you have to be careful about how you go about like if you want to continue the comic, I think you have to be a little bit more creative than just completely recasting T'Challa and then pretending like nothing ever happened, because I think that's still going to be in people's minds, right? I don't think enough people are going to be able to turn off the fact that yes, this person might be great, but I think it's too soon right now to recast T'Challa. I think, yes, you're right. Yeah. Down the road, of course, someone should play T'Challa again, but I think right now, I think it's too soon, especially when you have like such talents that are already on there. Like you could have Shuri doing it. Like we said, I think that'd be great. I think a lot of people would be more on board with that than just completely recasting it. I just think it just doesn't make sense right now, you know?
So what do you think they do to move on in Black Panther 2? Sorry, Bram, what were you going to say?
Oh, sorry. Well, I was going to say, you even mentioned that having Sherry like take over his role was true to the comics. So I just like don't get why there's even a question as what to do. Yeah. Like you don't just place somebody else in a role and like you said, pretend that nothing ever happened. I think that would be disrespectful
I'm with you, Bram. I want Shuri to take the spot of Black Panther 2. For me, my last question was, does it matter whether or not Black Panther's a boy or a girl? Because if that's the case, then, Shuri seems to be like the next logical person in line to be Black Panther. And it has the talents and the ability to do it. I mean, that's one of the powers of Black Panther is his suit, right? I mean, Shuri at least has the ability to develop her suit, make it even better. T'Challa was just wearing the suit that Shuri made him before. That's all that he was doing. This is more of an Iron Man aspect to it, and so I think that she is a great fit for it. But there is the step of how storytelling wise, how do you get from where you are now, where T'Challa is still alive in the cinematic universe, to all the way to Shuri getting that. That to me is going to be an interesting kind of like, how do you kind of fit those puzzle pieces together? But I think that the end ingredients.
I think you need to recognize that he passed in the way that is a tribute to Chadwick, and I think that all the characters who are so close to them, to him, that like grieves this. Like you could portray that in film in a very vulnerable, like respectful, beautiful way that does honor his memory. And I think that it could be like a healing thing too for everyone involved. If they recognize it, instead of just like plopping someone else on screen and being like, okay, you're Black Panther now.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be something. It's tricky. It's a tricky situation. Yeah. I don't know how they're going to deal with it. Chat's been popping off about it. Extreme Greatness I would like to say for DC to think of the long run of the movies, they could have went through with the whole Bruce Wayne Batman and the different Robins, Superman, Superboy, the Titans, the Batmans, and playing Batman. Okay, there's been a lot of it needs. Yeah, Sax is saying it needs to be Shuri. Doodle, are you Shuri about that? Hardy, har. So yeah, we've got a lot of mixed opinions about it, but I think for the most part, what we would like to see is, I want the role to continue on with Black Panther, and I think it should go to Shuri. And as far as recasting the role of T'Challa, I think that could be difficult, especially if you're just going to try to pass the mantle on to Shuri. But anyways, that will wrap it up for our top story. And so we're moving right along into our modular segment. And that means we're returning back to the water cooler and spending some good amount of corporate time just shooting the shit. So without further ado, let's roll that intro, Kate. And welcome to the water cooler where we talk about the latest bullshit that we've seen on TV. And that latest bullshit this week happens to be Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 5. Which premiered on Disney Plus this Friday, and it was a doozy. Let's go back one episode to talk a little bit about episode 4, because episode 4 was absolutely nuts. Sam and Bucky Barnes were in contact with some new friends. They get in contact with some old friends as well. John Walker's fake Captain America goes fucking ape shit in the middle of Times Square, and I mean, spoiler warning. If you guys see the spoiler alert on the content window, wherever it is on here, fucking kills a guy and just chops off that head. Gets a nice little blood stain at the bottom of the shield, and we end episode 4 off with him standing over there with that bloody shield in his hand, and it's a I don't even know where to begin with this stuff, man. First off, what did you guys think of the most recent episode? Kev?
I thought I seen about episode 5, not 4, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of sort of like, because I'm like, where do you go from 4, right? Like, because it left you with so much like on the bone. You're like, oh man, where's this gonna go? I think they did a good job, kind of setting up. We'll get more, I guess, dive more into the show a little bit later, but I think as far as what they're trying to accomplish, right? I think they're trying to get into this whole realm of how does Sam navigate being what was supposed to be a symbol of good and righteousness and hope, but really it's not. It's tainted, right? Like the symbol of Captain America is dirty. We know that. We know that from his meetings with Bradley. We know that how he was being treated, how they casted John Walker, and how all these super soldiers with the serum, what Zemo has been preaching, like, not everyone is Steve Rogers, he's the outlier. So we can't keep doing this, otherwise you're going to keep having these problems that you're seeing.
Right.
And I kind of like that. I think from what I've heard, it's got like lukewarm reviews. It wasn't bad, but I actually thought it was the best episode so far because of what they've touched on.
Yeah.
And I think some people don't like that, and obviously there's a lot of people who are butthurt because of some of the political messaging that's been going on in it. But that's fine. Whatever. So I think I thoroughly enjoyed it, actually.
Yeah. Brahma, what about you? What did you think about this most recent episode?
I tried so hard to get to the most recent episode. I really did. But every time I put this show on, I just fall asleep within 10 or 15 minutes.
It can't keep you interested.
They should rename it Ambien, because that is what this show is. And speaking of naming the show, even the name is boring. They got so bored they couldn't even think of a name. Falcon and Winter Soldier. What shows are named just two characters? Could you be any less creative? Nope.
Yeah.
They're these are two
we
of
just
the main
finished
characters.
watching
I guess that's the name of the
WandaVision,
show. Yeah, they used up all their creative energy, and now it's just boring, and I can't handle it.
You're gonna have a lot of fun with Loki and probably season 2 of WandaVision. They're all named after the characters that are in them.
No, and I get that. Braun is right.
No, I didn't even think, but the WandaVision, it is the two names of the character, but it's still clever because it's you're seeing things through her eyes, and it's there's a little bit of wordplay in it.
Okay, I'll give you that. That's good. Yeah.
So my problem, and to kind of echo, my problem leading up to these last couple episodes is it felt like an action movie, but most of the action movie is where they're where you're in the part of the action movie where there's no action, and they're just meeting people, and they're, you know what I mean? They're trying to set up the story. That's what it's felt like the entire show up until maybe these last 2 episodes. So I kind of get where Braun's coming from, and it is a little meh at times.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of stuff that they're dealing with that is I think it's just really high level, to be honest. I mean, one of the coolest things I think of is in the scene at the end where Sam is training, right? The entire time he leaves room on his left for Steve. And so the whole, I think there's just so many elements that they're dealing with here that I think are I don't know if they're missed to the common viewer or whatever the case may be. I mean, like, we're dealing with supremacist ideals and them being intricately ingrained in our politics, intricately ingrained in our military. And I think that's what John Walker is meant to showcase. Zemo points it out when he says anyone who takes this thing as a form of supremacist is just what kind of supremacist that you are. And that's what he's battling with in this whole episode that we see. And I think that we're going to see more of that in episode 6 when he kind of develops into, whatever he's building himself up to be, the U.S. agent. But I also think that one of the things we didn't get a chance to talk about in episode 4 was him getting his Bucky getting his arm taken off, and I thought that was such a brilliantly written scene, and because in one really cool motion, right. The Dora Milaje takes off his arm, reminds him who gave him that arm, reminds him who is in control in this situation, and he immediately stops fighting. And he just goes back to it, and he remembers all the help that they brought them, and remembers whose side he really needs to be on in this fight. And I thought that was a really, really cool moment of how to bring all those things together in just one action in one scene and just link all that stuff together. I think there's just so much to talk about. Isaiah Bradley, the black Vietnam Captain America that got the super soldier serum that they basically erased from history. I mean, there's just so much that they're talking about here, and I think that it's a very I think it's I've found it very entertaining in that regard, I guess.
And that's what I was saying up until like these last two episodes.
Listening to Dodson explain the show is so much more interesting than the actual show. So I will just listen to you give me recaps, and I'm like, this is cool. But watching it, I guess I don't pick up on that, or maybe I go on.
And I guess that's fair. I guess that's where it's flawed, right? Like maybe it's a little bit too niche, where if you don't have the context behind it, a lot of stuff's going to go over your head. And I think that's sometimes that's the problem. I think with a lot of what we've seen with some of these comic shows, or specifically, I'll go to DC with their movie situation, right? Like Batman versus Superman. Right. If you don't read DC comics, you're not going to know what the fuck's going on. Yeah. in that movie. And even if you did, you still didn't know what the hell is happening. So, but I mean, with stuff like this, right? Like you're past about 10 years of movies, and then they're going into the show. If you're watching the show, haven't seen a single Marvel movie, you're not going to know really what the hell is going on. And I think that's probably and I think that'll probably be the problem for most, and not even just for most. I think they just get really granular, right? Like I've seen all the Marvel movies. I never thought what you were saying, Dob, where he was leaving space to the left of him as an homage to Steve always passing him on his on your left sort of So I think that's kind of one of their flaws at this point, where it's I think they're just trying to build their own identity while keeping the identity of what they've done in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I've found a lot of entertainment in it, but I do dive deep into these things. I did a 25-page paper on Captain America, and I knew who the Flag Smashers were before they were introduced in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I knew who Zemo was before Civil War. So I feel like if anyone's going to catch it, it's going to be the fans that are kind of into it, like me.
Yeah. Now, speaking to that shield and self-portrait behind
right. Right. So one of the things I wanted to ask you guys, I talked a little bit about, some of the directions that the show is going, but what do you think is the end game here? What direction do you think the show is going? What do you think it's trying to showcase, and how is it going to do it? Kev?
So I think for me, it seems like the show at times is trying to establish its own identity and distance itself from Cap. while not really doing it. If that makes sense, right? Like they're trying to go in a direction where it is the Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Captain America's gone. He's not coming back, but it's like the ghost of Cap is still haunting and plaguing everybody. And maybe they're doing that on purpose because you see that's where a lot of these, like, I guess, moral dilemmas come from. Like Sam not wanting to take the shield, and Bucky saying he has to take the shield, and then John Walker saying, and then. Basically the U.S. government assigning John Walker as Captain America. I think that is the overarching theme, and I guess they're trying, like you said, where it is really high level, where they're trying to get at the hint of supremacy and these ideas, these rigid ideas that these things have to live on, and that they're bigger than all of us. It's when you're called to serve and all this other stuff, you don't ask questions, you just do it. And I think that's what they're trying to get at, and that's what Zemo, like you said, he's kind of this. He is in some place he's not the antagonist, but he is a antagonist, and he's trying to showcase the flaws of the so-called protagonists by turning their logic against them.
Yeah, no, I think that you've got a great point there. Sad Gaming made a great point in chat. John Walker is what's wrong with America. He killed a man in another country, argued with his superiors, and got to walk away scot-free.
Yeah, that's true.
And from judging, especially in this universe, from what happened to Isaiah Bradley versus what happened to him, you can tell that it's because it's the color of his skin. And I think that the way that they're approaching race in this show is really interesting.
Braun, they pull no punches with that too, with what I like. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they really have been. One of my favorite TikTok creators have been breaking down episodes of of Falcon and Winter Soldier. And talking about the racial elements, and been getting a lot of flack from, piss off fucking, redneck hillbilly inbred pissants, or racists. Basically, he'd been saying, like, what the show is trying to tell you is that a black person can't be Captain America by the standards that the society has set. And then finally the show fucking said it to him word for word. And he actually broke down crying when it happened, because he was like, oh, this is just an amazing way of showcasing all of this stuff. And it was like he was right about his intuition about it. So I think that was a really, really cool, very interesting artistically way of doing it. It's a painful kind of harsh reality way of doing it, but I think it was a really beautifully artistically. Bronwyn, for the parts that you've been awake for, what do you think the end game is here?
So I think the end game, or to an extent, and just looking at the platform of Disney in itself more than the show, because I haven't seen a lot of the show, is just that they really know their fan base. They know who they're trying to market a certain show to, and they're going to create these you said niche shows that appeal to that. So you have your these types of fans. They're going to give them what they're asking for. They're going to give the fans like me something like WandaVision what they're asking for. I'm excited to see what else they come out with. But I think that they're just going to have these the end game is to create these highly tailored shows based on people's specific interests, and those ride or die fans are going to ride on that wagon. And that's kind of what I see. And I feel like that's smart. This isn't my show, but clearly it's other people's shows. I'm not going to knock it, but it's if I have trouble sleeping, then I'll put on
So it's serving everybody, one way or the other.
Yeah.
All right. So last question for you guys. We saw the John Walker Cap at the end of episode 4 with the bloody shield. We see him at the end of episode 5 making his own brand new shield. What do you guys think this is the beginning of the end for the new Captain America? Do you think he's going to even last it past this season? Because I think he's already been set up as a major villain, and knowing who John Walker is, I know exactly which villain they're setting him up to be. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think so. He's got real Homelander vibes.
Yeah, for real.
I think it makes. I thought it was kind of lame. He made just another shield. Come on, dude, you couldn't make anything else. You're still hung up on that. But
yeah,
but I think that's the point, right? So obviously he was going to do that, and I think it makes sense. I think he would make a good sort of antagonist to this show.
For real, 100%.
Yeah.
Braun, what do you think? Is this the beginning of the end for our new Captain America?
Well, I feel like he's been the villain from the get-go. Like, there hasn't really been a question. Has there? Like,
No.
And maybe that would have been more interesting if you, like, kind of thought he was, like, going to be a good Captain America. But I just, like, oh, like, here's the new villain. Cool.
Yeah.
That's who we're, like, rooting against in this show. And, yeah, it's just, like, a crime to have somebody, like, that uncharismatic in the role of Captain America as well, especially after our last America. So that's
I think he's been doing a great job personally.
Yeah, really.
You know.
Yeah.
So I think that's and I think that's what John Walker's meant to do in this circumstance. So.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too, right? And that's I'm going to parlay a little deep here, but maybe and I don't want to spend too much time on this either, but like maybe I think a lot of people started hating the new Cap before they even realized who he really was or who he was going to be. They're like, that's not fucking Chris Evans. You know what I mean? And that's what I worry. And that's what I worry about the next casting of T'Challa. Like that, like they wouldn't intend to. You know what I mean? Like they wouldn't intend to make. Even if they made John Walker try to be a good guy, like I know that's not his role in the comics, but even if they made him attempt to be that, people would still hate him. Like, who are you? Like, it's just too soon to do that.
There was a commie smasher Cap as well who was against communists, and I thought that would be a really interesting one to bring in right now in this day and age, just because we've all turned into communists. But I thought that would be a more interesting one. But I mean, John Walker is a great pick for what they're trying to do and the people that they're trying to introduce. But I do think you're right, Kev. It does showcase a lot of what would worry about recasting T'Challa is that people would be like, Chadwick Bosman, and it's like maybe this person's not meant to be, maybe this person's just meant to fill in the shoes of T'Challa to make sure that there's more fucking Black Panther movies that come out. So I think that there's a lot to talk about there. I think anybody that goes out of their way and hates an actor because of the character that they play is absolutely ridiculous and needs to be checked into a mental institution. So, but anyways, that I think will bleed more into our deep dive. We'll be talking about that a little bit more later. But I think for Bronwyn and for viewers like Bronwyn, people are starting to lose some interest, and maybe they're not keeping everything everybody reeled back in. But for me, I think the conversations that Falcon and Winter Soldier are having on race and on what it means to be an American, what it means to be a soldier, I think is incredible. And it's been very, very engaging for me, super rewarding. I can't wait for the next episode. But be sure to tune in more for future water cooler discussions on all the shows for all the nerdy news you need to know. We're going to take a quick break now, but we're going to be back in 5. But before we do, we want to give a big shout out to all of our friends and family in chat over there. We've got Sad Gaming hanging out with us, Extreme Greatness, Savage Batch Kids, Sad Gaming, we already said Sad Gaming. Caper Doodle, the fattest Sax is here with us. So tons of fun. I know you guys have been contributing a whole bunch to the conversation here. Savage talking about look at the kid who played Joffrey when we're talking about people being hated for their role. I mean, and
we're gonna get into that.
Cersei too. We'll be talking a little bit about that when we come back from the break. It's when the fans go after them that you need to help them. I mean, I think we're going to be diving deep into that in our deep dive. So we'll have plenty more when we come back from our break. Shout out to Isaac1073 for giving us a follow yesterday, and I think Master Itchy gave us one about a week ago. We really appreciate that, and that's cool. All I have. We'll see you guys in 5.
All right, guys, stick around.
Peace. And we're back from our break. Of all the irony, right? I cough right as soon as I said that. Right? I've got a confession to make, guys. I enjoyed things made by terrible people. Over and over again, we've learned that people who have created art that we love are accused of monstrous acts. This could be Michael Jackson's Thriller to Louis C.K.'s Louis, or Shakespeare in Love, or Manhattan, or The Cosby Show. But at heart, the dilemma is the same. How do we reconcile aesthetic pleasure with moral disgust? Which of our feelings win? How do I separate the art from the artist? Or do we even need to separate the art from the artist? Kevin, let's start with you. Are there any artists enjoyed over the years that you've reconciled with supporting or liking at the time?
I'll say Michael Jackson. And I'm going to use this reconcile and liking as very, like, I'll say I've grappled with trying to, right? I wouldn't say I fully support them. I'd say I've wrestled with the idea of trying to support this after everything is happening, right? Like, I'll just name a couple examples. And this isn't necessarily to me. I'm not really hung up over anybody other than, I'll say, okay, so Michael Jackson, Kanye West, and then a weird one, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, I heard about this.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that, but so just backstory of why this is important to me. I was a first-year astronomy major in college. I left because it was very hard, and I was doing a bunch of other things at the time. But I still have that sort of affinity to, like, physics and space shit. So right. Neil deGrasse Tyson, being like this brilliant, entertaining black cosmologist, astrophysicist, was great, And then all the stuff comes out about, his less than ideal behavior, sexual assault allegations, even rape in some cases. And I'm like, what the fuck? So that's something that's been hard for me to sort of like grasp and wrestle with. And I'm sure there's more that come to mind if you think about it. Like if you just name somebody, I'm like, damn, he did something. It's someone's done something. Like it's more often than not, it seems these days.
Yeah. Bron, same question. Is there any artists over the years that you've kind of reconciled with supporting or liking at the time?
So I don't know if I fully reconciled, but there's like, for example, Joss Whedon, who I don't exactly agree with, but I still will say that Buffy the Vampire Slayer is probably my favorite show of all time. Like I'll still hold on to that show near and dear to my heart. Or even like beyond film, there's authors and visual artists like Allen Ginsberg. I don't really agree with his lifestyle, but I still really love his writing. And I don't, obviously not actively supporting him because he's not alive anymore, but like I'll still read his poetry and really like it. Or Andy Warhol's work, not Andy Warhol, David Bowie's work, I will still listen to that, even though he had kind of questionable practices with younger people. But, yeah, there's just so many, so many people you could name. Like, what's his name? Big Jewish director who.
That's not a great start. Steven Spielberg?
No. Oh my gosh. He'll come up, but there's a lot of artists who I feel like the trick is like not actively supporting them by giving them your money, but like you can still like their work is kind of the line that I've drawn for myself. Like I can still like your work, but maybe I won't pay for it.
Yeah, I think you're talking about Harvey Weinstein. Is that who you're talking about?
No.
Damn it, I don't want to bring that back up. All right, let's Chinatown. You know who I'm talking about. Here, I remember
quick
something.
Google search.
There you go. Google solves everything.
Google solves it. Right. Roman Polanski, that's who it is.
Oh,
Roman Polanski.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, that's valid. That's valid.
Yeah.
Obviously, art makes us feel a certain way. That's why we're drawn to it, right? Is the feeling that Brahman, I'm going to start with you. Is the feeling that we get from art more important than the actions of the artist who created them?
More important in what way?
Let me repeat the question because it's a lot. It's a loaded question. Is the feeling that we get from art more important than the actions of the artist who created them?
I think it depends on the actions, because if the actions are actively hurting other people, then no, I don't think that you can substitute your own pleasure with somebody else.
Yeah, I think that's a valid answer. Kev, I mean, I completely agree. I think that there is a line somewhere. I wish that it was a question that you could unequivocally say yes or no. But I think that you're right, that there is a line somewhere that you have to be drawn to. Like, someone can make a really nice lamp, but if they've been making it out of human skin, like, I'm going to take
Yeah,
into account that they've killed people first before admiring the art.
yeah,
Um, Kev, same question.
yeah.
Is the feeling that we get from art more important than the actions of the artist who created them?
Uh, Yeesh. I'm sorry. I got distracted. Someone said OJ was someone they wrestled to reconcile. I don't. Anyways, um, yeah, I think we should separate it, but not without addressing controversies or the context of like who the artist is, right? Because that's important. I think oftentimes, like for sure, life imitates art, and vice versa. Also, they usually like get fame and like it's why they get the fame and acclaim from that. If they benefit
Right.
from it, and which is why being a good, decent person isn't the benchmark for becoming rich and famous. And we shouldn't acknowledge that so people aren't influenced by the wrong qualities in a person. That's a more deeper issue, I guess. But I think it's important to acknowledge it, right? I think yes, you can feel good about something that a shitty person has done, but you can't just regard that shitty person. So it's weird, and I think you have to be careful, like who you choose to support. And I think if
Yeah.
you are contributing to someone who is less than an ideal, person in society, and I don't mean this like everyone has their vices, sins, and flaws, but there's some that are pretty obvious that are detrimental to humanity, for lack of better words. I think you have to really reconcile that.
No, I have to agree. I think that there's a lot there.
Yeah. Obviously, there are some cases, and I don't mean to say this, man. It's dangerous to go down this path, but there
Mhm.
are some nuances, but there are some that are obviously not nuanced, right? Where
Right.
there's smoke, there's fire, and you have
Right.
to be authentic and honest about those things. And I think that's where it becomes, right, where it's like we start letting certain people escape because yes, maybe there is a gray area with this case, and then a lot of people try to use this as a broad brushstroke to justify just the things that they like and what entertains and makes them feel good.
Yeah, that doesn't that doesn't necessarily work. One of
Yeah,
the common answers to this dilemma of art versus artist has always been repeated so often, is that it comes to there is a self-evident from truth. You must separate
right.
the artist from the art, right? That's what a lot of people say. That's why we get the term art from
Yeah,
artist, right? Separating the artist from the artist. Separating
yeah,
the art from the art, the artist from the art, the argument goes, is the best approach to all art, no matter what you're trying to get from it.
right.
Some don't believe it's necessary to reconcile their feelings about a piece of art with their feelings about the people who created it. But Kev, what do you think? Should we separate the art from the artist automatically?
I think sometimes no, because I think sometimes the art is an expression or an extension of the art. Like I'll use this as an example. Like for instance, in this mostly because most recent, I watched an episode of Bill Maher last night. Mostly because it was like trending on Twitter, and he was
Bless
coming
you.
under fire. Thank you. And I was curious. I was like, okay, why is Bill Maher under fire today? I'm like, what's going on with Bill Maher? And I think Bill Maher tries to pride himself on being sort of like an objective, enlightened centrist. Whether he is or isn't, I think that's up for the
Yeah.
viewers or whatever.
No,
But Bill
hard to
Maher,
agree.
right? But Bill Maher is an old white dude, and he says
Mhm.
things that you would expect from an old white dude. And I think that's his art, right? That's his expression. That's his shtick, right? And he would not disagree with that. And the problem becomes is whether or not it's wrong. And I think that's the gray area stuff, right? I'll give you an example. He had Sharon Osbourne on his show, and
Mhm.
they were talking about the Meghan Markle and the royal situation, right? And
Right.
they weren't talking about that situation. They were talking about why Sharon Osbourne got canceled and fired. And it's like there are some cases. Yeah, it's got really weird. I'm sorry, but
Extreme
there's
greatness in the
yeah,
chat.
Jesus Christ,
Suggesting
yeah.
Hitler.
Okay.
No, I don't think that's the
but
perfect
there
example.
no, but there's some cases where it's like, okay, like for instance, Sharon Osbourne basically got fired because she said Piers Morgan said that what he said, and then she said she doesn't agree with it, but he's entitled to his own opinion. And she got fired for that. And a lot of people are like, shit, what, and some people are like, yes, you're rallying, saying, yes, she should have been fired. And some people are saying, what's wrong with what she said? And I think the context matters, right? There are obviously things where, yes, you can have an opinion on it, but it doesn't mean your opinion's in the right, and in that case, it's messy. Like, I don't want to get into it because one, I don't know enough about it. I'm just going to be completely honest. But circling back to Bill Maher, I'm just saying that he, like, his show and everything that he does, I learned this last night for one, because I don't really watch him that often. I watch him occasionally. But his show is kind of like an extension of him, right? Like, that's who he is. He's old white Joe Rogan. Like that, and I think, and you can see that with like a lot of musicians. Like, some people will be like, oh man, why is this artist's music misogynistic or violent and stuff? Well, maybe that person's misogynistic and violent, or maybe has been in those situations where that's all they've seen and that's what they know. Right, so a lot of times
you also have artists that completely use that same kind of things to and that has been weaponized against them and weaponize it back. Perfect example, Lil Nas X. And I think that you could flip it. I think that's straying away from the conversation a bit, though.
Yeah.
But I think that you're saying that sometimes you should separate the art from the artist, but before we get too far, because I got another question I want to ask you off of that, Kevin. But before we get too far, Brahman, what about you? Should you automatically separate the art from the artist when just viewing any art?
I don't think automatically, especially because, if you think of some artists who maybe use their position or their fame or platform to manipulate or abuse or that kind of a situation. And in that case, I don't think that you can, because they're not. They are directly using their influence to hurt people. And I've been super close to a whole situation like that. So I can see from that side, I don't think that you can always separate it or should always separate it if they're not separating it.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. All right.
No,
so
that's what I said. I wasn't saying that you should separate it. I was just saying that you should acknowledge that is an extension of that person, right? Like what I was saying with Bill Maher and Joe Rogan. The reason their show is the way it is because that's who they are. You know what I mean? That's their expression. And I think when you say should you separate it, I don't think you really should, because again, that's coming from like your own personal experience. I think it depends on the medium too. And I think the medium is important, where for instance, when a lot of comics are starting to get canceled because they come out with some of these inflammatory jokes, and a lot of it's done for shock value. And I think the problem is that a lot of people there's a split sort of divide where it's comedy is just comedy, they're just all jokes, and the other thing is there are certain things that should not be labeled as jokes, right? And that, I think, is something I wrestle with, because yes, I do believe there are certain things that aren't jokes, but that for the most part that's subjective. There are things that should be objective, but even some people think that there is no objectivity when it comes to what should be labeled as what you can make fun of and what you shouldn't. So I think people who are willing to go to that point, I think that is who they are. So you can't separate that. You see what I mean?
No, I think that I think that we're all arriving at the same thing, which is that you really can't separate the art from the artist. I think that American Beauty is an absolutely disgusting movie to watch when you know the hindsight of Kevin Spacey. And I think that forever, I think it would be a crime to look at that at American Beauty with the same eyes that we had before we knew all the stuff that came out about Kevin Spacey. I think it would be fucked up to look at that movie still in that same light. And so in those situations, I think it's absolutely necessary that you separate the art that you don't separate the art from the artist. I think it is absolutely necessary that with artists like Michael Jackson, that you still are able to recognize what he was able to do,
Right.
And maybe what the fame did to him as a child actor, and what that but you need to take in the full totality of it. You need to be able to take in the full totality of what happened with David Bowie, and understand that there's a connection between, some of the same kind of fucked up shit that Michael Jackson did, that David Bowie did, and maybe think,
Yeah.
hey, maybe when we throw somebody into this kind of this position, this spotlight, that that there's fucked up, that there's, not that takes away from any action that they did. They're still fucking guilty of doing the shit that they fucking did. But I think that you can start to recognize patterns at very minimum,
Right. Right. No, for sure. And I think that's the issue, right? Where it's like, yes, you can acknowledge something was great or someone was a great artist, but you can't, like you said, you just can't completely, like, that doesn't give them a pass.
Right.
And then I think then the issue comes in where it's like, okay, well, if I don't give them a pass, but I can still acknowledge and appreciate or I can still acknowledge they're a great artist, can I appreciate the art? And I think that's the tricky problem that people are having, right? It's like, because how do you appreciate art? Well, you consume it. You
Yeah.
Right. No,
And there's
I
also
think that,
like the idea like of time, and like I love that you brought up American Beauty, because that movie, like when I saw that, it was like I was probably probably late high school, middle high school, so it was like way before any of this stuff was coming out about Kevin Spacey, and I love that film. I thought it was just so artistically beautiful and provocative in like a very smart way. So it's like I think of that experience of watching it and like how I view that film, like kind of in that frozen in that space of time. And you can't, in a sense, you can't separate those, because you can experience something and have feelings about it, but then you find out this information later. It doesn't take away that experience. It just kind of develops a new perspective, but you still have that first experience of like enjoying something or getting something out of it that's not just erased. I think a lot of these things, a lot of times you find out this information about these artists, these directors, these producers, like after the fact,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. We've discussed how art and artists are interrelated, but there's one very basic, concrete thing that connects most living artists to their work, which is money. This means plenty of people will, choose not to engage with a predator or an alleged predator's art on the grounds that they don't want the artist to benefit from the consumption of that artist's work. Does good art justify the person, or does being a quality person justify your art, Bronwyn?
I don't know.
Kevin, we'll toss it to you first.
Yeah, I
Does
think
good art justify the person, or does being a quality person justify your art?
I don't think being a quality person justifies your art, because there's a lot of good people out there that just make shitty things. Like, that's just what it is. And I think vice versa. I think it's just like I think that's the separation, right? Where it's like you can be either or of those things and then make really good or bad art. I don't think either of them are mutually exclusive.
It seems unrelated. It just seems like an unrelated.
Yeah. I just think it just so happens that there's a lot of great people that make some great things that we want to enjoy or have enjoyed or still do enjoy, that we feel like we question whether or not we should because of what they've done. And I think there's a lot of great people of those, right, that become like kind of talking, like the people that are just fine, we don't really talk about them, like and to that, like when someone, like for instance, when someone says how great of an artist is or how great of talent, like no one talks about how they were as a person. Like no one cares. Like that's just the reality. Like no one, like that, it's like, I mean, it sucks, but that's what it is, right? Like no one says, oh man, not only was this person a great actor, a great singer, but then they'll maybe throw this in, hey, we're also a great you know what I mean? Like it's always last. And that's and I think that's where, like Bron was saying, they're not really related.
Yeah.
And I think
No,
because that's kind of expected, right? Like, yeah, you should be a good person, like you, or at least try to be, right?
right. I mean, I think that I think that art should be looked at it in its totality, and I think that if you don't take in the artist as a part of the art, then you're not taking in the full part of the art. Like if you can see a cool picture online. Oh, that's really cool, right?
Yeah.
You enjoy the art more when now you know that the person that made this lives in your neighborhood, right? Oh, that's cool. This person lives in my neighborhood. You enjoy the art more now because of it, right? You learn another fact about it. Learn more about how much time it took them to create, however the case may be. You're learning more about the art, right? Like it's kind of like saying, okay, are you going to separate the creation of the art away from the artist? You can't do that. Why would you? You can't. That's impossible to do. The artist created that. There's no way to separate those two concepts. Yeah. And I think that it's weird that we decide that art and the artist can be separated. And I think usually it's for monetary gain. I think this is a really, honestly, a capitalist ideal. I'll say it again. It's a capitalist ideal. And the reason is because they want to save the monetary value of a franchise of something when beyond the moral characteristics of people. That's a better asset to be able to own if it's immune to the shittiness of people.
Well,
right?
That's a large issue in itself, right? Like, because that's the game, right? Like, that's the whole thing where it's like you're only justified in your art if you're monetizing it, right? Like you can't otherwise you're like crazy wasting your time or just whatever. But if
follow
you're
us on social media,
right? Follow us on social media, so we cannot be any of those things. But that's the point, right? Like that's the game. Unfortunately, that's what a lot of people justify it by. Like, as long as you are making money off of this, then it becomes a gray area, or it becomes something that we have to mull over. But if you're not, then no one cares. You're not important, and it's unfortunate that that's the world we're in. But that's what we're in.
Yeah.
It should not be that way.
It shouldn't. And I think that one of the examples that we talked about here, and we talked about a little bit in the Falcon Winter Soldier, is a lot of the hate that Wyatt Russell has received from from playing Captain America, John Walker. And you have fans that are treating him like he's the one that's replacing Captain America because he embodies that character so much, but he's not. And honestly, the fact of the matter is that the more that he pisses you off with his character, the better his acting is, the better job he is doing. Sure. And that's to me, one of the weirdest aspects is once you fully get into your art, that you can actually be hated for it if your character is, such a hated character. So.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I had like a coworker say that one time. They were like, they said that, I forget where it was, some character. They're like, I hate this person. I was like, you hate the person or the character? Like, the person. I feel like you have to be a terrible person to play that role.
But here's the funny thing is that we're all talking here. We're all talking here though about separating the character from the artist. Are we not? I mean, at that point in time, we're talking about that is a time where you separate the art from the artist. But I actually would argue that it's actually not, and here's the reason why. Okay. The art that's being given is John Walker and being a shitty person kind of thing. And art-wise, it is good art. And that is a part of that actor's job that they did in it. And so I do think that is sitting there and still, I do think that is attaching the art to the artist and saying, no, it is Wyatt Russell's talent that is bringing John Walker to life. He is not, that doesn't make him a John Walker. That makes him a good actor. And those things are intertwined. And I don't think that, where that we might say that you need to separate the art from the artist there and not look at Wyatt Russell as John Walker. I think you really are actually not separating the art from the artist. You're saying the reason these characters are good is because Wyatt Russell's fucking good.
Well, and that's the thing too, right? And like most actors, and we'll even talk about this, like most actors who play villainous roles are actually pretty good people.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times and if you heard, a lot of times it's because they'll say the same famous line words. When you're playing a villain, the villain always has to feel that they're right and justified in their actions. So in a way, they kind of, like you said, they're taking themselves and they're saying, in this position, how would I justify doing what I'm doing? Because that's the only way it becomes really convincing.
Right. Right. Well, Wyatt Russell has really embodied John Walker and brought him to life, and that's been really exciting. But moving right along into our top Zen, sometimes it's hard to separate art from artist, right? As humans, we can't help our tiny brains just refuse to see some actors as anything other than the amazing characters we know and love them. So this week we wanted to give you guys our top 10 artists that embody yada 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 the characters. So much so that it's hard to see them as anyone else in those roles. And Bronwyn will be kicking us off with number 10 in the countdown. Bronwyn, who's number 10 in our countdown?
Number 10 in our countdown is Ian McKellen as Gandalf. Ian did an amazing job with this role. The role of Gandalf could have quickly gone sour if not for Ian's ability to play the concerned parent, sage counselor, and strict teacher all at once. He did a perfect job balancing the harsh realities Gandalf faced with the humor inside every situation. "You shall not pass" will forever be ingrained in my nerd head, and I honestly couldn't see anyone else shouting it. But while Ian McKellen was Gandalf the Great, number 9 on this week's countdown has his claws out. Who do we have at number 9, Dodd?
Yes, but before we go into number 9, I want to talk a little bit about Ian McKinnon as Gandalf, because I mean he's been an absolutely iconic character in the Lord of the Rings series. Mm-hmm. And like this is how I was introduced as Ian McKellen. He really did embody this role, and ever since then he has been the wise gay wizard of the land. And I don't know if Gandalf was gay. Headcanon for me he is, but that's just maybe wishful thinking. But as far as in the real world, he still has had that kind of very not only what's the word I'm looking for, like fatherly, but like teaching kind of wisdom giver kind of aspects to him, but he's also had that kind of whimsical fun loving aspect too that Gandalf is known for as well. And so I think that this was a person that really, like, I can't possibly think of another person playing Gandalf if they ever redid these series at all. Mentor, maybe that was the word I was looking for. Mentoring, kind of. Yeah, I think that's probably the right word. Kev, what do you think about Ian McKellen as Gandalf?
He is Gandalf.
Yeah.
He's somehow Gandalf and old Magneto for me. Like that's just that's just what he is. That's just who I see. Like I don't see anyone else. I mean, and it's probably because he's been the only one to play him, and probably also for good reason. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what this countdown is all about. But number 9 on the countdown is probably one that's been even harder for people to see, even though people have tried to definitely recast this character a number of times, because he has finally stepped away from the role. But that is number 9 is Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. X-Men should have never been remade because no one will ever be able to fill Hugh Jackman's shoes. He brought Wolverine to life in such a unique and heartfelt way. Having played the role of Logan in over a bazillion X-Men films, it's easy to see why he'd make the list. It's hard for me to think of anyone else to play Wolverine, that's for sure. Fans loved watching him in the movies, and Jackman's performance will be hard to top if the studio ever does decide to reboot the Wolverine franchise. But this list is filled with a bunch of different heroes. So, he's only coming in at number 9 on the countdown. But Bron, what do you think about Hugh Jackman making number 9 as Wolverine?
Oh, yeah, he's definitely my Wolverine. I love him in this role, but I also love that actor so much because even though I can't think of anybody else embodying Wolverine, I can see him embodying so many other roles. He has such a cool range as an actor. I could see him playing anything, but I can't see anyone else playing Wolverine.
I could think of, I've stretched to think of a possibly do it, but there's had to be a lot of a lot of photoshopped convincing to get me to go that way. What do you think, Kev, about Hugh Jackman as Wolverine number 9 in the countdown?
Yeah, I think wasn't there like kind of a controversy where they said they had found a replacement for or not a replacement, but a recast for Wolverine, and then fans kind of just there was so much outcry that I guess they didn't do it, and somehow Hugh Jackman is still Wolverine somewhere in the world.
Maybe. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, that's why he's number 9 on the countdown.
Yeah.
Well, number 8 might have been a better fit for the role than anybody else. I mean, number 8 in the countdown actually I do think embodies the character more. We got to talk a little bit about him earlier in the show, which is Chadwick Bosman as T'Challa. Kev, tell us why the Black Panther makes it at number 8 in the countdown.
Yeah, Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, also known as Black Panther, was a perfect fit. His mannerisms, understanding of the impact this has to the culture and the magnitude that his role holds is something that Chadwick Boseman was no stranger to. Aside from playing a myriad of other prominent black figures, Chadwick Boseman embodied T'Challa in many ways by fully immersing himself in the world, really kind of just changing. There's like a certain vibe and energy in 2018 when this movie came out, and he was kind of like right in the center of it. And it just seems like everything was kind of just gravitating towards this movie. And a lot of that was because of sort of the energy and the passion and him embodying this character. And it was just like, I still go back to that. Like, it was a weird moment, a weird time, because I remember I had the Fat Sex, like how important this movie was, that he'd seen it 3 times. He took his parents to see it, right? Like this movie, like there's not enough black superheroes out there, not enough like great black superhero content, and this was the one that was created by black people, produced by black people, and then executed by black people. And it also wasn't accidentally black either. It wasn't like, it's a black character doing things. It was like, it's like, this is black, like as right. From Africa, like rooted in the culture kind of thing. Right. It was intentional, and I think that was why it was so great. It was a black movie, and and it was a great black movie, and Wakanda forever.
It's gonna be hard to think of anyone filling these shoes. Obviously, we talked about the reasons why that would be, something vital and important. But it's gonna be hard to see. But I know, Bronwyn, you and I both would be, I think all of us here would be excited to see Shuri take the role of Black Panther and carry that mantle.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, number 8 on the countdown is a huge, definitely embodied that character fully. There's one that stumbled into this countdown very drunkenly and made it in at number 7. It definitely has been playing a bunch of Sea of Thieves with me lately, that's for sure. Brahman, tell us who we got at number 7 in the countdown.
Number 7, we have Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow. Nobody else could have played the role the way he did. From his mannerisms to the way he talked, he was the perfect Jack Sparrow. When people cosplay Jack Sparrow, they are just a pirate Johnny Depp. Well, Depp is a phenomenal actor who's really embodied many roles. His take on Jack Sparrow will never be outdone. It's one of those characters that no one else will ever be able to do justice the way Depp did. There's no Pirate of the Caribbean without Jack Sparrow, and there's no one else who would play Sparrow like Depp. Well, Disney struck gold with Depp. DC might have outdone them with number 6. Who do we have emancipating themselves at number 6, Dodd?
Emancipating themselves at number 6, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. That's right, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, the deprived sidekick of the Joker, makes her big screen debut in the much anticipated film Suicide Squad, which came out in 2018, 2017, something like that. I think it's 2017. Highly, highly anticipated. Big flop. With a lot of I was so excited for that movie, and then they cringe at that one line where Katana walks in, And Harley Quinn goes, "Is that the stench of death?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
ugh, you know.
Yeah.
But Robbie did steal the screen after the scene in Wolf and Wall Street with her heavy Bronx accent, stunning features, was a perfect fit for the role, even getting her own standalone film. I mean, The Birds of Prey is her own standalone film, let's be honest. The Birds of Prey and the fabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. The accent, the looks, the hammer, Margot Robbie has completely stole the show in every movie that she's been in as Quinn, and we can't wait to see her in the new Suicide Squad film. I'm hoping that James Gunn has a better take on Harley Quinn than some of the previous movies. Braun, what do you think about Margot Robbie making this Harley Quinn as number 6 on the countdown?
Yeah, I think she's a great Harley Quinn. I don't know if she's the only person who could play Harley Quinn, but I do like what she does with the character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I could see it going different routes. I could see.
That's true.
I love Margot Robbie. I thought that she was incredible in the movie Tanya. Like, oh my god, or I, Tanya. Did you guys ever see that?
Yeah, no, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good psycho to play.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I like the Tanya Harding psycho a little bit more than her Harley Quinn.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, it might be
It's just
hard to
great.
pick. Well, it might be hard to picture anybody else as Harley, though. Number 5 would have taken a little of magic not to make the list. Kev, who's under the invisibility cloak at number 5?
Yeah, it's Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter. Surprise there. Daniel Radcliffe became an international superstar when still a child after being cast as the lead in the Harry Potter series. It was a highly sought after role, but Radcliffe thinks he knows why he got it. He doesn't think he was inherently the best actor auditioning for the role. In fact, quite the opposite. He admits that he wasn't the best actor at that age, but he believes that he had a spirit that impressed those making the decision to cast him. Sometimes there's simply no replacement for pure enthusiasm, which seems to be what Daniel Radcliffe thinks he had over the role of Harry Potter. Certainly, passion is important, as it drives you to want to do a job well. However, it's also important to have passion when playing Harry Potter because it's something that the character himself very much has. The casting of the main 3 characters in the Harry Potter series was unique simply because they were casting actors who would play the same role for over a decade. It wasn't just about figuring out who would do the part justice in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, but also trying to figure out what these actors would be like in years in the future and making sure they would still fit the parts then. Looking back, it's easy to say they all nailed it, but specifically Radcliffe. I mean, he is Harry Potter. No one else could play the role, in my opinion. While number 5 is magical, number 4 is a merc with a mouth full. Bron, who you got at number 4?
At number 4, I have Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. It's easy to see why Reynolds as Deadpool is one of the best casting decisions in the history of comic book movies. Reynolds seems to be having as much fun as anyone bringing the merc with the mouth to the screen. And his lightning-fast dialogue and ear for the sarcastic and strange seems to be perfectly in tune with the ever-popular anti-hero of Marvel's comics. Deadpool, who is always a little too weird for mainstream fanfare, but maintains a rabid cult fan base, made its solo film debut in February of 2003. Now it's almost impossible to see anyone else playing the iconic anti-hero, as long as we all just forget about that one X-Men movie. While Reynolds as Deadpool might be one of the best comic castings ever, number 3 is definitely one of the GOAT casting calls. And before we move on to number 3, I want to mention that I think he does have a lot of fun in this role, and you kind of see that in the way that he even it promoted the film or interacted with the public, and he just totally was Deadpool, and I love that meta aspect of it, and you could just tell the Deadpool was a little bit of him, and he was a little bit of Deadpool, and that kind of.
Well, and I think he really wanted to be too. That was the thing, because he did play Deadpool before, and it was terrible. But he acknowledged that, and I think that's why. Not only was this
and it was
something
written,
for him to do, but he wanted to redeem it.
It was clearly a writing decision, right? I mean, his mouth was sewn shut in the plot line. That's what made it suck. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was really stupid. Like thinking about, there's a lot of dumb things that was someone trying to be overly creative,
Right.
like and cutting their face despite their nose, right? Like, or cutting their nose despite their face, however the expression goes.
Cutting their
But
nose despite their face,
yeah,
yeah. And
yeah,
then cutting
yeah,
off their
like
ears and then cutting
and
off
then
the parts of their cheeks
and
and
then
then just
sewing their mouth shut. Yeah,
yeah, and then just looking like a whole meat face just
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That was
Or
dumb.
like Deadpool.
Or like Deadpool. They were like,
Yeah.
how can we make like what's your creative twist on Deadpool to make him nothing like Deadpool? Like what?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Reynolds was the perfect person for it. I can't think of anybody else that could play this person. And you talk about him acting like Deadpool. I mean, like there's all the time where he's very much tried to dance around the question of whether or not he was the person that actually leaked the original footage that got Deadpool going.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's danced around that for a while, and then like he hides like in his Mint Mobile commercials. You'll see like when he's on his desktop, it'll say like leaked Deadpool footage. Like Ryan Reynolds has his own like
Yeah.
Easter
Yeah.
eggs that he puts in his own
Yeah.
content kind of stuff, and
I
I
think that's
think
what's so
that's
great about it.
amazing that
Yeah.
that he's done that, and that's something that does not involve Deadpool at all. But just
No.
it's hard. It would be absolutely impossible to see anybody else in the role of Deadpool. That's for sure.
No, when someone like an actor's that passionate about a role or a character, like it's hard, right? Like some actors go into it and it's either like they just do it, and some are even reluctant. Some don't even want to be associates. They try to distance themselves. But when an actor just fully embodies it, like this is what it means to embody it. Like you said, he like on and off the screen, he's always Deadpool somewhere, even just a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's different than well, I mean, it's not as impressive as number 3 on the countdown, and you got to pour one out for number 3, unfortunately, which is Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia. Anybody that knows about Carrie Fisher knows that Princess Leia, it feels like Princess Leia was more modeled after Carrie Fisher. And honestly, I hate the Princess Leia that's in any of the video games or the TV shows, because they're always make Princess Leia this hope, nice, all these things, but Princess Leia was this kind of like back talking, like no man, I don't like you, or like smacks the guy in the face kind of thing, like she was Carrie Fisher. And Carrie as Leia was the only person who could have inspired an entire generation of girls to be strong, independent women. Fisher's Princess Leia is a strong, heroic, brave throughout the entire first film, showing a level of complete skill and charisma unmatched by many Star Wars actors since. In The Empire Strikes Back, Fisher continues to portray Princess Leia as an important and essential figure in the Star Wars universe. She's integral to the story and a huge part of what makes the film so spectacular. Leia's importance to almost every Star Wars movies is unmatched, and Fisher embodies this character so much that it's easy to see why she made number 3 on the countdown. Honestly, the Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia shows a great evolution in character, and just a very. I mean, she fully embodied this character. I mean, she was the we can do it, kind of poster girl for being a strong female lead, and that's why when I see anybody else playing the character in any capacity, it just does not work at all.
Yeah.
I don't think you could do a movie about young Leia, because I wouldn't like it, because you don't have Carrie Fisher, young Carrie Fisher. Like you would need Carrie Fisher for that. What do y'all think about Carrie?
Really great actress. I feel like that could be cool.
Okay, all right. That's that. You got me with your first counterpoint, Bronwyn.
No said. Close enough. Yeah.
You got me with the first one.
Yeah. I got nothing for that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's solid. That's a solid pick. While Carrie Fisher is amazing, I think the shoo-in, she could be a shoo-in for number 1, but why so serious about number 2, Kevin?
Yeah, it's Heath Ledger as the Joker. I remember people were so confused, myself included, by the casting decision at first. Heath was known to be a good actor, but before this movie, it was hard to imagine him in any kind of role like that, right? Like he was, they're all just kind of like basic acting roles for the most part. Like nothing really too dangerous or exotic. so to speak. Then when we all saw what he brought to the role, it all made sense. He played him to perfection. Heath did such an outstanding job that everyone that portrayed the Joker before and after him doesn't even compare. It's a legendary performance. Heath did such a good job. Leto was doomed from the start. We talked about this earlier. Sorry, Joaquin, but Heath will always be my favorite Joker. Dodbron, how do you feel about this?
I mean, I think that this was when you talk about embodying the character, this is a darker one, but I do think that he deserves the recognition that he did. Heath Ledger, what he did to take on the Joker role will always go down in cinematic legend history and method acting legend history. He locked himself, for those of you who don't know, he locked himself into a hotel room. He studied pictures of clowns, all these kind of different shows and stuff like that. Himself into a serial killer through isolation. And he fell into a hard drug addiction right after because he went deep into this role. And basically that's what ended up taking his life was an overdose.
He embodied it so much he died with it. Like
he embodied it so much that the Joker took him out. So I think that is one that it's a sad and it's a dark one, but I definitely agree with its placing as number 2. Brahman, what do you think? Do you think it's a valid pick for number 2?
Yeah, definitely. It is a sad pick. That was very strong statement there. I don't know if we can necessarily say that like everything about the role took his life, because I don't know what else was going on in his life. But I can see the impact. I can see that, and I think that method acting is such like a interesting psychological study, like to an extent, and that literally is what you're doing when you're doing that acting technique, is you are embodying that character. So I do agree. He is top on that list for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
And while Heath Ledger as Joker could easily be number 1, it's easy to see who's the real GOAT casting decision. I mean, he's the first Avenger, for Pete's sake. Bron, who's the number 1 on this week's countdown?
Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, Tony Stark. The similarities between Robert Downey Jr. and his most famous on-screen performance run deeper than the ability to deliver a snarky one-liner or rock an iconic goatee. In many ways, Downey Jr. is eerily reminiscent of the Tony Stark that many of us grew up with reading comics. A former addict who rose from near I can't read that word, sorry. A former addict who rose to a high status to become one of the world's biggest stars. It was Downey Jr.'s performance in Iron Man that kicked off the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he remains the most recognizable member of the Avengers squad that is now found on merchandise from North America to Asia to Africa and everywhere in between. Effortlessly charming, enticingly edgy, and 100% here remains the best casting decision in the history of comic book films. What are your thoughts?
I mean, this is an obvious one to me. I mean, I think that watching Robert Downey Jr. go from struggling with alcoholism to, where he is now shows you. Definitely someone with the troubled past for sure. And I think that he's risen to the stardom and has really embodied the honestly, capitalist icon superhero that he is. That's what Iron Man is. He really has played it, and because of it, he's added in several lines, even some of the most famous lines, like "I am Iron Man" right before he snaps his finger at the end of Endgame. That was all improvised, and that's because he, really did embody that character to be able to come up with those lines, to be able to improvise those spots, to be able to fill in those blanks. So I think that he is a 100% the solid pick for number 1.
Right, and he does such a great job of it too. I think balancing it, right? Like he embodies it so much, but I don't think he I wouldn't say he lets it consume him. It doesn't seem like he does other things, right? He does other roles, but he's not he's no stranger to knowing that this is a part of who he is and his a huge part of his legacy, I guess, as an actor. And I think you see that so many times where it's hard, where someone either they fully embody it and they get lost in the character, or they fully embody it and they resent it because fans won't let them go to anything else. I think Robert Downey Jr. has kind of balanced that, and I think that's what makes it so likable.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. But that will about do it for our countdown. A couple of honorable mentions. Tom Hiddleston is Loki. Chris Evans is Cap. Basically, most of the Marvel casting calls. John Krasinski is Jim Halpert. Tommy Oliver as the White/Green Ranger. Some dishonorable mentions. Kevin Spacey as Francis Underwood. That turned out to be one that really lived up to his standards. And David Bowie as Jared the Goblin King. Yeah, that one's really... I think that's a dishonorable mention. Still, I mean, you're talking about a character.
Context. Okay.
Yeah, the context.
I get it now.
Right, like we're saying he's dishonorable. Like we're saying, especially the fact that like he's like the protector of children and stuff like that. And David Bowie was known to like sleep with kids, stuff like that. I think that's a dishonorable mention.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree. I keep forgetting how terrible he is because I'm like, my context of that film was watching it when I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, that'll wrap it up for this episode of Geek Life. You know, just leave you with that taste of disappointment in your mouth. We hope you've enjoyed everything you've seen today. Remember that if you want more Geek Life, you can always follow any of us on Twitch, Twitter. You can find me at RuseBane, WRUSE_BANE. Brahman, where can they find you?
You can find me at SpaceNymph on Instagram and here on Twitch.
And Kev, where can they find you?
You can find me at Totally Awesome.
And if you want to join the nerd herd and get engaged in the conversations that we are having all the time, and check out a whole bunch of our dank memes and play Sea of Thieves with us, definitely check out the Discord below. You can find a link below that should say join the nerd herd. There should be a big glowing green. What's the thing? A caravan looking thing? Yeah, there's a logo for it. We designed a logo.
A wagon.
It's a fun logo. It's a wagon. It's a wagon, right. I want to say thank you, Jay Hazard, for that subscription coming in there. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. Also, shout out to Fattest Sack, Savage Patch Kid, Littlest Nelly, Extreme Greatness, and Sag, everybody. Yeah, everybody was hanging out with us. We had a lot of fun today. Thank you guys for contributing to the conversation. Again, if you guys like anything else that you see or hear, be sure to follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram. All the links you can find on our link tree somewhere in the bio below. Big shout out to our moderator, Littlest Nelly, and our video producer, Cape. Big shout out to Cape. We finally got everything back up and running. That was definitely something that we needed to have happen. And all of our new followers. I guess you can find Kevin killed by extreme greatness. That's all I've got for you guys. We'll be back same time, same place next week. You'll also hopefully be able to catch me this Friday for a Free Game Friday. Fingers crossed the internet gets fixed then and we'll be able to do all that stuff. But that'll wrap it up for this episode. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. We'll see you same time, same place this next week. Yeah, peace. Bye.
Bye, guys.